Welcome to Jasiri, where bold ideas meet transformative conversations. And today, we join the world in commemorating Human Rights Day under this year's powerful theme, Our Rights, Our Future, Right Now. This theme is a rallying cry reminding us that the rights we uphold today directly shape the future we desire. It underscores the urgency to act right now to protect freedom, justice, and dignity for every individual, ensuring that no one is left behind. In a world facing challenges such as inequality, injustice, and discrimination, today is an opportunity to reflect on how we can collectively create a future rooted in respect and equality. Let's embrace the power of our rights to secure our future, starting now. This is Jasiri, where conversations ignite change.
Human Rights Day is observed annually around the world on the 10th of December. It commemorates the anniversary of one of the world's most groundbreaking global pledges. This landmark document enshrines the inalienable rights that everyone is entitled as a human being, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, language, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Today, we are reminded of the universal principle that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. However, in Nigeria, reality often paints a different picture, a stark reminder of the work still to be done.
Now, human rights in Nigeria face significant challenges and constraints, from the infringement of freedom of speech to police brutality, arbitrary detentions, and the marginalisation of vulnerable groups. These issues have profound consequences, eroding trust in institutions and perpetuating cycles of injustice. Unfortunately, if we start mentioning instances, I'm afraid a whole 1 hour won't be enough.
Very true. While these challenges may seem daunting, they are not insurmountable. Civil society organizations, activists, and concerned citizens are working today tirelessly and risking their lives to demand accountability and justice. This serves as a beacon of hope. The journey hasn't been easy or won't be easy, but it seems we all have to take one step at a time. And so, on this Human Rights Day, let us reflect on how we can contribute to building a Nigeria where dignity, freedom, and justice are not just ideals, but everyday realities for all. Whether by speaking up against injustices, supporting human rights defenders, or holding our leaders accountable, every effort truly counts.
Every effort counts. I know it sounds good to say, but we know some of the realities of what happens in Nigeria, whether with efforts or no efforts. It just feels like we're hitting our head against a brick wall a lot of the times when it comes to issues around human rights violations, be it the police, be it the army, be it one agency or the other, be it even individual Nigerians, because let's realize that high up there individuals, the elites in society, are often also guilty of human rights violations as well.
Of course, and I'm wondering that we're signed to a lot of international treaties, and Amnesty is looking into us and all that, but we're still guilty. We're supposed to be the giant of Africa. I mean, a country that a lot of African countries look up to. That means we should hold ourselves to a higher standard and do better by our people. Human rights violations are rife in Nigeria. It's even nice if other countries it is seen. But here, there are a lot of human rights violations that are unseen, undocumented, and they are the worst. Even looking at, in recent times, the kinds of people, look at the Freedom March, where people were, assaulted and beaten, and you're like, okay, what happened? Looking at NSA situation, there's still so many unresolved things around it. And in recent times now, they get into people's offices and just pick a person
and carry you
across state lines just because you have a contrary opinion. I believe even if you think there is something to go to court for, then follow the due process and do the right thing. Not just, I think in Nigeria we're very power drunk. I think we're very power drunk.
Power corrupts. Absolute power
this
corrupts.
One is absolute because nobody can be called into to order with the things that they do.
And it's sad because the actions of the high and mighty in the society are endorsed by those who should be protecting the ordinary citizens, the law enforcement and the judiciary, because you can't tell me that somebody who, because he has money, tries to infringe on the right of another person gets away with it. And it's not, these days they don't just get away with it. They are, how do I put it? The police help them.
Yeah.
The security agencies help them to carry out these treacherous. Look, it's just so sad that these days we don't even, before you cry to the security agencies or you cry to the law, but now the law can change and tweak and is thwarted just to favor
right in front of the very eyes. I think for me, I'm bringing it down. I'm bringing it down to individuality. We as individuals that make up the citizenry, that make up the people that make up this country, we have issues. We don't even realize how fundamental our fundamental human rights are. And when you talk about human rights, everybody says, oh, here is human rights, oh, human rights. Some people just hear it just for the text of it, human rights, and that's it. Ask anybody, what does it really mean? Do you understand your fundamental human rights? People don't, because we just take it, we just assume. Why I say I'm individualizing it is because if you go to normal taxi parks, bus parks, you can't even stand on a line without shunting.
That one is hitting too much.
For me, the devil is in the detail. If we cannot get it together as individuals, we cannot get it together as people. So for me, if you break it down, human rights, we can say it all we want contextually, but if you look at it, let's break it down and enter the meaty matter.
Honestly.
We cannot organize ourselves individually. Even in an estate where we all live, everybody feels protected when you live in an estate. People cannot even come together to say, okay, let's agree to grade or to tar the road. Let's not do too much. Let's just put quota on it. Someone says, oh, no, I cannot do it. It's not my father's property.
Yeah. I went to look for the definition. So the United Nations says human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. Human rights include the right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. Everyone is entitled to these rights without discrimination. And when you talked about bringing it down to individual, I absolutely agree. Because we will sit at the same table and we'll hear the stories of what the Nigerian army or the police or the Navy has done to individuals. But we'll also sit at this table and hear what a Nigerian has done to the next man or woman. We can talk about the high and mighty using power to their advantage. But one thing I always say, Nigerians, wherever they have their power, they can misuse it. Do we not hear stories of domestic staff being maltreated by women and men in the house? Is that not human rights? We don't hear stories about children being mistreated and maltreated. That's human rights. So before we sometimes, as you said, look to our government and the elites in the communities to be the ones who lead the way, how are we leading the way in our own individual circles and our communities? I don't think we should get caught up in human rights being this highfalutin, global, federal sort of thing. It's also an individual conversation as to how do you treat the next man or woman beside you?
I think we're too angry in Nigeria too. That's why when you were saying that, I thought, Nigeria, we're quite complicated as a people. We are very complicated people.
Honestly.
You go on the streets, Nigerians are angry. Nobody say, sorry, my brother, no vex. And if the brother that is reacting say, but you did this to me, the person that already started saying sorry will now vex plus and say, oh, is it because I said sorry to you? So we are so quick to go from 0 to 100. Without even thinking. So
honestly,
So again, I think that one of the best things we can do for ourselves is to magnify these conversations, because most times you hear the government talking more about the obligations of citizens, and we trivialize the rights of the citizens. So the citizens are expected to do this, expected to do that, but we don't talk about what the citizens are entitled to. And I do agree, because Nigerians are, I've said it, largely opportunistic. Any small thing, even when the prices of, it's not just by being verbally or physically abusive. You're trying to manipulate people into thinking, oh, things are not expensive, so the prices just skyrocket for no just cause.
Honestly, this morning I sat in some kind of transportation and I was looking at a uniformed man sitting next to me, and he was agreeing with the area boys. Do you know that the guy cut the full bus the area boys in the park collected 5,500 from him.
Huh?
Ajakonde, another one collected 2,000 naira.
What is that
that means
5,500?
I was there
to leave the park.
Yes, to load Oshodi, and the guy, the uniformed man that is supposed to be the one that
you say would speak against it in a way.
This is a uniformed man that is supposed to maintain law and order. He was calling the guy by name and saying, "Oh yeah, Shenoma." And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And when we got to Jakonde, another set of area boys or whatever
took over,
2,000 naira.
Yeah.
That means from between Aja and that
You want to
place,
count it.
he had paid 7,500.
Yeah.
So calculate for yourself, how much would the driver be making? How much would the owner of the bus be making? And I wonder that in this same country, these are taxes that they collect that we do not even know where it's going.
This is part of the tax that
And it's been
Dele spoke
endorsed.
about when he was
It's
here.
been endorsed.
So tell me why he wouldn't be angry
Of course.
on a daily basis. He's chuffed out 7,500.
Yes.
And that's because, you know, we are people of peace. We don't like wahala.
And I don't know what will happen before he gets to Oshodi.
Say, please just give him, I beg, just give him,
Yes.
let's be going. Let's just give
So
him.
that's, I'm just saying that
thing
those
we
that are
always do.
supposed to uphold the law are working in consonance with these street urchins, and you are wondering that there was no paper,
receipt,
no
there's
receipt.
no-
It's just money going into some people's pockets.
And they move on to the
That's
next.
much money.
Yeah.
And the bad
Imagine
thing
how
is
many
that
buses.
they
Imagine 20 buses.
they were willing
More
to
than that.
ground the bus. They were willing to start tearing the bus apart. I'm like,
If you
is
know
this
how
a
much
country?
Lagos makes in transportation, if you look at all of this is just off the books. This is
Yeah.
off the
And this
books.
is
So
one
you-
part.
the book.
At different levels.
And this is
Yeah.
one park. So you can imagine all the different parks in Lagos, how much that they're making. I was speaking with, because I went on the streets once because of a package I was putting together, and Okada riders were complaining about how much the local governments make.
from local community.
From-
Once they
yeah.
pass the boundary and they enter into
enter
local,
another one, they pay
the
again.
money that they make, it is whether we like it or not. It's when Lolo says a man in uniform, men in uniform are working in consonance with street urchins, it's not a lie. You
Yeah.
see, it's as clear as day.
And that's
And
why
the-
they're not scared of these people.
Yeah.
You would be like, oh,
So
see
with
police,
one
oh,
human
police,
rights
oh,
campaign,
bring
so who
money.
is going to enforce your human rights when they are working in
that's why I wanted
consonance
to
with
go,
them?
because
who would
the
enforce?
people who are better educated and trained and expected to uphold our human rights are even the ones that either they're working to deny us our human rights or they're working in consonance with somebody else. I don't know if you guys saw the video this weekend of police officers who were demanding 1,000 naira in Enugu and how violent the encounter was getting between them or between one particular police officer
even small.
and the and the bus driver.
Yeah.
But then again, we talked about individual. There was another video my husband showed me yesterday of a woman who was a passenger in a car. They got stopped, I believe, by either LASMA or who's Blue? Blue and white in Lagos.
Is
I
it
can't
the
remember.
vehicle VIO?
One of them.
No, VIO is
If you
black and
see
white.
how this woman
safety.
was beating this guy in uniform inside the compound.
The woman?
And she was not
I'm
the
not
owner of the
laughing,
car.
Jesus.
She was even the passenger. That video disturbed me because I was thinking to myself,
The passenger
you're
was
not
beating the person in
owner.
uniform.
Yes, his organs were there. It was even his organs that were telling him to just calm down. This woman,
Frustration.
she could have broken his hand. I was just I was just saying it to myself and I'm thinking to myself, so somebody like her will sit somewhere and be talking about government is not doing this, government is not doing that. Someone like the police officer will sit somewhere and be talking about government is not doing something. And yet we are even the ones. We're still the ones. We're part of the mess. When we want to defend our human rights, don't forget that part of the NSAR's demands also talked about better pay and conditions for police officers. I've never seen a country so much that is either
In contradiction.
voting or against its own enlightened self-interest.
Yeah.
And it's staggering to see.
It's staggering, honestly.
It's just really staggering.
So you ask yourself, I mean, Naswe.
And that's when you see the amount of aggression that is on our street.
Yeah.
Because when you see the venom, when people take up arms or take up their fist against security agencies and, men in uniform, you be like, but you don't know what they've suffered.
Yeah.
When somebody that is supposed to protect you stands aside and
Everybody-
expects you to take your own bull by the horn and Fight your own battle.
And that's why
it
you
becomes
see
bloody.
many individuals moving about aggressive and defensive. It's a trauma response because you're on the road, you don't know who is moving mad.
You're a government
to
unto yourself. You're a mini government unto yourself. You and your family, you're a government of your home. So imagine if everybody has this mini governments that they're dealing with. And because it's, like you said, it's trauma response. The government is not working for you. Create your own government that works for you. Some people who are bold and fearless enough also have their own transformers. People who are bold and fearless enough have their own streets named after them.
I don't know
people who are bold and fearless have, they decide that, listen, since I cannot leave this country and go anywhere, I want to be here, take matters into their hands and become the government. So everybody is moving on 200. Instead of 100, everyone's moving on to 200.
I don't know who was asking. Someone was saying, why is it that people are naturally mean to policemen when they see them on the road? I'm like, as you're going to smile now, come and park. You know, so you don't know who to be nice to.
There's no need.
I almost said, you know the vibe, but he didn't enter. I've been wanting to say it.
Yeah, just still hold, hold that thought. Just hold
Everybody
it.
has said that thing to me all through the weekend. Any small thing, you know the vibe.
Okay, so let me help you. Let me help you.
Mine, they sing it to me. You know the vibe.
So let me help you. Let me give you an opportunity to say it. Lolo, you look so good at the premiere.
You know the vibe.
Once again, welcome to Jasiri.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Say it again. Say it again.
You look so good at the premiere. Say, you know the vibe, man.
The baby doll is coming out.
All right, this is a place where different voices are amplified, where deep conversations are held with four bold ladies on this table, unafraid to say things as they are and call things for what they are. I almost said call things that be not as though they were. I'll tell you for a fact, right? What we do isn't exactly easy, but it sure is worth it. Let's take a short break. There's more on the show after this, so stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. You're watching Jasiri, and right now we're heading to Kumasi, Ghana, I believe, where Bennett currently is. He's been giving us updates on the Ghana elections, and of course, he also, as well as our international correspondent, Afia Hagan, also updated us on the concession and, you know, the whole... There was a little bit of drama, but it wasn't as much. So, Bennett, good morning. Can you hear us?
Hey, Chale, good morning. I can hear you.
You've been there how long? You want to show up? All right, Ben, so just run us through a bit on the elections. I know we've all followed quite closely, and the current vice president has conceded, and now we know that former President John Mahama is coming back into power. Let's talk about the conduct of elections. You covered it extensively this past weekend. How did it play out? And give us a bit of a comparison between how you've also seen elections you've covered here in Nigeria.
Okay, first of all, let me just say that when I get back to Nigeria, if anybody accosts me for comparing this, I'll put it all on you guys, because that has been, like, you know, the biggest question everybody has been asking. But I mean, it's worthy of note and something that you cannot deny, especially if you've covered elections in Nigeria for several years. I would like to start first of all to say that there's no country that doesn't have its own issues. Eventually, we got to hear of some pockets of violence across the country here in Ghana. We got to hear of some disturbances, some issues. But to be honest, it was nothing compared to what we see back at home. And it was nothing that would affect or that would have affected the elections generally in total. The first thing that really impressed me concerning the election is the fact that, as you know, in Nigeria, there's a curfew when it comes to elections. First of all, there's no movement from midnight the night before, or rather midnight the day of the elections, all through when election runs from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Before curfew is now lifted, and then people can go about their businesses because of the election. In Ghana, we realized that there was movement all through the election period. Election was to start from 7 a.m. and to end by 5 p.m. when counting will now commence, and there was normal movement. It was a regular Saturday for everybody. There was a public holiday before. I thought it was for the election, only to realize that it was Farmers' Day in Ghana, and they respect their farmers. But besides that, nothing concerning the election caused or was called for a need for for a curfew. And that's one. Two, the election was supposed to start for 7 a.m. and 7 a.m. it did start. I was in the Ashanti region, that's in Kumasi, and before 7 a.m., as a matter of fact, electoral materials had arrived, electoral officials had arrived, and even the voters had started to arrive, you know, and then they all cast their vote as they were supposed to. 3, I believe, I spoke to some of the voters there on queue, and they said the good thing for them is that last election, it was a bit tight. Sometimes materials came late in some places, and then they had to stand on long queues. And I think the Electoral Commission realized that and decided to make some improvements such that they had more polling stations, so that if you had 2 before, now we had 4. So half of the time of what it took them last election is what it was going to take them now this time. That's what they were saying. Also now coming to the press, to we journalists who were going to conduct the elections, we came, we're here as international journalists, and we had to register even before getting here. Everybody had to register as a journalist to cover the election. Now on the registration, on the cards that we were given, there's a QR code right there, such that even if you have to identify yourself or you have to prove your identification, they could scan the QR code, right, with their cameras. Anybody can scan it and then get your information. Let me see if I can get my own card. Please hold on. Thank you, Adi. Now, this is what my own card looks like, right? And every other journalist who was here. This QR code here, you would scan it and then you would get the information of the journalist. Now, we went to Kumasi, so we didn't have enough time to pick up our own cards in Accra. And our colleagues who were in Accra, who served in Accra here, sent it to us via the internet. We got it, and every polling station we went to, whenever they ask us, all we need to do is to show the picture on our phone, and then they could even scan it through that and get our information, and we continue our business working. So, like I told the people on the breakfast show, and that's just some out of the several things I've noticed. I've given you my report. I'd let you all be the judge. Tell me what you think.
I'm getting a little jealous.
Would you say that the issues of violence, what would you say is at the root cause of it? Is it like we see here where there's things like vote buying or thuggery ballot box snatching? What was the color of their own violence? Was it a little lighter than what you would see in Nigeria?
Yeah, I think it was a little lighter. Now, you would expect, unfortunately, to see some kind of, I would say, emotions running through certain party supporters or party officers when it comes to elections that are suspected to be this close. Look at the 2 candidates, the 2 major candidates who ran for this election. You have one who is currently the vice president, Mamadou Bawumia, and he's with the ruling party. And then you have another very familiar candidate who was a former president who ran 4 years, and now he's the strongest opposition. Just talking about Dr. John Dramani Mahama. The 2 of them have quite a huge following in different parts of the country. So, of course, you would expect some kind of emotion to run through the veins of their party supporters. However, this emotion definitely should not cause unnecessary drama. And like you just asked me now, Lolo, the drama that we even saw is a lot different from what we see or what we saw during our own elections. During our elections, we saw people who would snatch ballot boxes, people who burned certain ballot boxes, people who committed all sorts of crime. We can count on the fingers of our hands and still have extra fingers, right? The number of troubles that we heard of in different areas, the places where there was some electoral violence. It looked ugly, I would say, in the eyes of the Ghanaians, but compared to what we've seen in Nigeria, this was child's play. I'm sorry if I have to put it that way, but that's the truth. I only saw of one place where the polling unit was destroyed, some government property was destroyed, and people had to run for their lives. And then the second place where our own colleagues, Afua Hagan and Adelande Thomas and Chidima Ubani, were standing on the night of the election, and then they heard of some disturbance and had to run away. But besides that, we didn't really get so much. There was news of some people who were killed, I think 2, if I'm not mistaken. Some people had gunshot injuries, based on information I got. But again, that's across the country. In Nigeria, sadly, we had so much electoral disturbance that it got really, really disturbing. Now, let me add this in perspective. While they were doing the final declaration yesterday, there are 16 regions in Ghana, and each of the regions have different, what's it called now? Different districts, so to speak, right? Different constituencies. That's the word. The electoral officer stated that 9 constituencies, they were unable to get results from there because of the different issues that happened in those 9 constituencies. However, they were so accurate with their calculations that even if those 9 constituencies had still come in, the results would have been inconsequential, such that the winner would still be the winner.
Okay,
so it shows you that the kind of drama, the kind of issues they had wasn't so much to affect the results of the election.
Okay, Bernard, very quickly, I want us to speak around the sentiments, you know, that have emerged from the first female vice president, that's Professor Nana Jane Okonkwo-Agyemang, who is who was running side by side the president-elect John Mahama. Now, we've seen several reactions where people are saying, oh, there's a lot of expectations from her, and you know that she has a background in education, which should position her to, you know, influence a lot of reforms and all. But what do you think personally about her emergence as the first vice president? Do you think that the pressure will be a lot? How do you think that this has transformed the political landscape of Ghana?
Oh, of course, I do think that there will be a lot of pressure on her shoulders. The entire, you know, victorious party right now has a whole lot of pressure because they only have 4 years. Remember that Dr. John Mahama Dramani has ruled before, one term, 4 years, so he only has 4 years to deliver. And the country currently, according to Ghanaians we have spoken to, is not exactly in its best state. Yeah. So there's a lot of work. Now, coming to her, she is the first female vice president. There's a lot of excitement. People are ecstatic, particularly the women, knowing that this is a win for women, it's a win for girls. In Africa, there's a lot of agitation for women and girls in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in terms of everything you can think of, you know, early child marriage, trying to cancel that, violence against women and girls, also trying to work on that. So these are all the things that I think she's going to address. Added to also running to her job as, you know, the number 2 person in the country. So she did say at the acceptance speech last night, and it was quite a frenzy, I must say, that this is not just a victory for her, it's a victory for all the women, it's a victory for all the young girls, it's a victory for African women, not just Ghanaian women. You know, it's a victory for the liberation of African and Ghanaian women. And I think it's a good thing for us to see. We haven't had a female vice president in Nigeria just yet. We're all looking forward to something like that. Possibly even a female, we haven't even had a female governor, you know, in Nigeria. We're looking towards that. And we're waiting to see how this turns out. So yes, there's clearly some pressure on her. She knows, as the rest of the party members know, that the work that they have taken on right now is quite a Herculean task. But I think, again, like she did say, it's a victory for the women folk in Ghana, and not just in Ghana, in Africa. We need more women in politics. We've been talking about that. I think you ladies spoke about that yesterday or the day before. And this is a testament to the fact that women are actually stepping up, but it's still not enough. There's a need for more women to step up into Nigerian, Ghanaian, generally African politics, so that women will have a better say. Like somebody I know used to say, it's not enough for somebody to say, I've read about women, so I know about women. You have to be a woman to feel what women feel. Case in point, some argue that even male, you know, let me not go into medicine, but some argue that even male doctors can't claim that they've read enough about women, so they know how to handle women or how to treat women. Same thing in politics. You can't exactly say because you're a man, you know what women are feeling and going through. And this was some of the things that she put out yesterday, and that has been making part of their entire campaign. So yes, again, to answer your question, it's a win for the women.
All right, Ben, we'll let you go now. Hopefully, of course, I know you have us give us more updates on the news before you leave Accra today. Thank you so much for all the hard work yourself and Afia Hagen have given us this past week. And please, I just want Dokunu. Please, just bring Dokunu and Shito from me.
Just bring yourself
You should not come empty-handed. Dokunu and Shito. It's all right, okay? Good, we're on the same page. Thank you so much, Bernard Akede.
Thank you very much, Bernard. Now let's focus on something that hits a little closer to home.
I think we should take a break first.
Okay, all right. Before we focus on what hits closer to home, we'll take a little break and we'll return. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, yes, the show is called Jasiri, and we are at News Central on all the social media platforms. Now, let's focus on something that hits a little closer to home. In 2022, when Folakemi Ogususi set out to engage the services of Mide, a young graphics designer, to help render services to her client, little did she know that her one good deed would lead to her putting her life on hold for the next 2.5 years. The report you're about to watch is one of our special investigative series. This is a story of Folakemi Ogususi, a young aspiring events manager and teacher who was drugged and raped, impregnated by her colleague. I need to warn you, that what you're about to watch could be so disturbing to some viewers. News Central Special Correspondent on Investigative Journalism, Marshal Anthony Onoye, reports.
Folakemi makes a living for herself by running errands for people and providing surprise packages while also teaching college children online. She does all of these while still catering to her daughter, whom the doctors say has a medical condition characterized by several holes in the heart and a severe physical deformity. For Folakemi, her whole world came crashing down when she encountered Mide. Mide will later turn out to rape and impregnate Folakemi.
He came to school that day, and that was the first time we were going to encounter. And he said he does graphic design and he does logo. So I called him that day, Alpha, please, I need this job. He said, no, it's not done. I should come over to his house. I said, okay. He went out, he brought Fanta. I took it halfway. That was the last thing I remember. Because I was not totally unconscious. I felt someone was having something with me, and I was trying to, I said I was trying to push, but I'm weak. In the morning, I was not like, did they make advance at me, or did anything happen? I called him, he denied it. He was telling me maybe I'm not thinking it, that nothing happened. He said nothing happened. A month later, I found that I was pregnant. I told him that, see, I'm pregnant too. He said, go and do what your mates are doing. I was like, what am I mate doing? I don't know. Get rid of the child. I'm not responsible.
In an attempt to get rid of the unwanted pregnancy, only to be left with a botched or incomplete abortion. The result, this baby with multiple holes in the heart and several severe physical deformities, leading to the inability to walk, talk, and breathe properly.
The day I gave birth to this child, they called him and he admitted that he did it, but they should apologize to me.
Folakemi blames herself for her predicament.
Well, at a point, I felt the abortion was partially responsible.
After chatting with Folakemi, we tracked down Mide. You know Miss Folakemi?
I know. We are friends, and actually as colleague, and she's a female, I'm a male. And as a normal business partner, I don't know her motive based on me as colleague. And my motive based on her. We are adults, we are matured, and anything might come along with each other. As a colleague, based on colleague and work with each other. So with the action of work with each other, we actually work, deliver work to each other. Like she need my service in graphics line, I deliver it to her. I also need her service in cake she produce also, I deliver it to her. There are cases where maybe she has surprise to deliver. We walk around the team and get more team to join us. So and we deliver together.
That's all you know about her? Is that all? You never had a relationship with her?
I never had.
You never had a relationship?
What I just had with her is friend. And as friend is anything can come up around each other.
Anything like what? Did you sleep with her?
Sir, I've said that as friend, anything can come up.
Oh, so that means you slept with her?
Yes. My last word I dropped with her is, if I have done this, like if you are saying I am truly responsible for this, I am sorry. I am sorry.
On Tuesday morning, 26th of November, only 4 days after our last visit to Folakemi's apartment, at exactly 10 minutes past 7 o'clock, we received a call from a frantic Folakemi, her voice buried under her cries. In between prayers and wailing, Folakemi managed to say that the baby was not responding and doctors were battling to resuscitate her. 18 minutes later, another call from Folakemi will reveal the confirmation of the death of baby Grace, Folakemi's baby. Cause of death, heart failure. Time of death, 7:15 a.m. Age, 2 years, 7 months. In a collaborative effort with News Central TV and Olumide Omosebi of the Genesis Help Initiative, Mide was eventually arrested on 27th of November 2024 by police detectives from the Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Unit of the Lagos State Criminal Investigation Department, Banti. For Folakemi, one can rightly say her rape case leaves her with not just a scar, but the bitter experience of having to lose a baby after several traumatic years of battling a severe medical condition. With Mide now arrested, she hopes to find some justice for her rape and the death of her baby. Marshal Anthony Onoye for News Central.
I have goose pimples all over me, and I'm wondering what manner of people exist in the world that we exist now. You booked someone for a graphics job, and of course sometimes you have to go and meet your graphic designers because they never deliver on time. And it must be someone she's familiar with for her to agree to drink Fanta. And after that, she did not even know what really happened. I'm just like...
It's not the first time. Usually they say when things like this happen, it's most likely somebody you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like a total stranger would waylay you. That it happens, but that's quite a reach. Usually they say it's somebody you know, and then you're comfortable, like you say. You're owing me, you do a job for me, I don't hear from you, I go to meet you, and then you give me something to drink, and I pass out, and then even when she was narrating, she said she wasn't sure.
Sure, what happened?
Did this happen? Did it not happen? And then she's pregnant, and you say, do what you need. What is that?
Do what your mates are doing. Do what you know you're supposed to do. That part really sincerely disturbed me, and this is not the full of it, of course. Lola will have us give the details, but when we think about this situation, it's unfortunately replicated across the country. It's not a one-off. It's not a one-off in Lagos. It's not a one-off in many communities. He's still teaching. He's actually teaching
people's children.
So it makes you wonder even just how safe, and we've spoken about this situation. Women, girls are not safe in their homes. They're not safe in school. They're not safe in the mosque. They're not safe in church. They're not safe in workplaces. They're not safe in the malls. They're not safe on the roads. Wherever we can be physically, women and girls are not safe. And it's just a situation. I'm very thankful to the organization that's working with her. We had the man as a guest, I think, a few weeks ago. He's been arrested now. We hope to see some justice because at the end of the day, Baby Grace is dead.
Yeah.
She's going to have to move on. But one of the things for victims of rape and sexual assault to be able to move on is often seeing justice being meted out on those who have assaulted them. How do you move on when you often don't get justice?
It's like a bitter pill you have to just keep swallowing.
This is just a one-off case. Listen, it's sad that this happens. It happens repeatedly everywhere in Lagos, Ibadan, anywhere
the trauma
in the world,
she must have gone through for 2 years, 7 months, battling a child that was born with disabilities.
And the saddest part is this is where you see two kinds of inhumanity. The perpetrator who, I keep wondering, at what point do you start concocting this plan? Do you deliberately delay the work so she can come to your house and then you poison? I can't wrap my head around, the planning that would have gone into it. Even him saying do what your mates are doing probably sounded pre-planned. Like last if he tells me
what joy do you derive? This is a woman who's passed out, and you have sex with her. She's passed out. She's not even. She's passed.
Look at that woman. If I would ask.
She had a relationship. Her relationship she had to. This caused an end of her relationship.
Of course it would. If you look at where I was going, if you look at this, I would want to ask Marshall because she looks like one of those people that belong to some religious organization, like all those gospelers or Christian. that means a lot of, she might have been excommunicated about her people. You know, a lot of people might think she was lying, she was wayward. This would have cost her part of her livelihood. They just told me now that her relationship ended. How do you explain to your boyfriend that you're pregnant? And you cannot even understand when you had intercourse for it to get to that level.
And there's a point that Catherine made about planning, and so did Blessings, and it just made me realize. So this guy had this drug, whatever it may be, whether it was a roofie or whatever it was at home. If it wasn't at home and he knew she was coming, it was easily accessible. So we also need to consider the fact that there are people either have it at home or something like this is on the street that people can easily access to be able to use against young women and young girls. And her case is just reminding me of Giselle Pellicotte in France and all the men who kept thinking, oh, because her husband gave consent, so her consent was not necessary. Your quote-unquote desire trumped her personal authority on her own body. It trumped her physical autonomy over herself because you had desire. Whatever you wanted to do, you can excuse it away because you wanted it regardless of how she felt about it. There's a large conversation. A lot of people talk about the fact that Nigeria has a rape culture. We don't like to hear that. Just what do you mean? But there's a rape culture that helps to perpetrate the crime, that helps to keep criminals out of jail, that helps to keep victims from getting justice, and that helps to silence victims. There's a rape culture we need to actually identify and talk about.
I
so many things. I saw something
popular routes.
Yeah.
Because what Tulu has said has just made me, I can actually hear Nigerians, and whether we like it or not, you can deny it. Exactly. Why did you even go to take it out in the first or attempt to take it out? But I can hear people also saying that, listen, no matter as it be, the baby has passed, it's better she has passed because, of course, she was already dealing with so much at such a tender age. And we are the same people who say we will not judge. We only hear, we don't judge. We listen, yeah, we don't judge. But this is what I can tell you for free. Nigerians are thinking, oh, it's better, may her soul rest in peace, but it's better that instead of suffering and instead of, why did she have to even start the process? Why did you go for an abortion and the abortion wasn't completed? And you know, so it's a lot, this conversation.
If you want to know a Nigerian's true thoughts, just put the story on social media. And I know I would never be surprised by any because Nigerians will surprise me.
When the story goes on social media, we'll bring back the comments.
Nigerians are surprised. For somebody to, we were talking about rape one time, and then somebody commented and said, people are overly dramatic. So the fact that I just do something makes you not want to. When I saw that comment, that was the height of it for me. Like,
this has
I listen and I judge.
Look at us women on the table. We heard the story. All of us we were lost for words. We didn't even know how to engage conversation. It's becoming a habit, and I think even the age of the rapists are getting younger and younger by the day. And there are so many causative reasons for this. The access to pornography that just constantly sexually stimulates our youth. It's too much.
Without them being able to handle it.
Without them being able to handle it. And nobody's teaching them how to...
Year one students in university that are raping and killing.
Yes.
Oh, you went far. There was a group of boys, secondary school, I think about 14 or 15 or however old they were. They gang raped a girl in this country a few weeks. We need to go for a break.
Anyway, if you want to watch the full report, it will be out today by 8:30 p.m. West African time on News Central and, of course, all our social media platforms. We'll take a breather now, but when we return, we'll continue with, the little part of the show left. Do stay with us.
Welcome to the last couple of minutes on Jassery, but quickly before we go, let's take a hot topic. So the Lagos State government has issued a 7-day ultimatum for the removal of unauthorized gates and barriers across the metropolis, particularly in Lekki. According to a statement by the Commissioner for Transportation, Oluwaseun Shiemi, the surge in unauthorized gates is disrupting traffic flow, hampering emergency responses, and jeopardizing public safety. So these installations, many of which lack approval, violate state regulations. So all gates and barriers installed within Lagos metropolis without prior authorization are illegal and will be removed. The Commissioner has also advised residents and CDAs to comply with the Lagos State government's policy and regulations for gates and barriers was mandatory. He said gates must remain open between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. daily to ensure smooth traffic flow.
Now, from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., gates may be closed but must open promptly for emergencies. Approved gates must be managed by security personnel provided by community development associations, otherwise known as CDAs. The commissioner warned that non-compliance will attract enforcement actions, including gates removal and penalties. Residents and CDAs are urged to adhere strictly to these guidelines to ensure public safety and connectivity. I want to do a little dance. Because do you know how many times I've been in that Lekki and I will be doing like I'm turning on my own? Because you get to gate and gate is locked. Meanwhile, it's a narrow street. Gate is locked and there's nobody present with a key. There's no alternative. And then you just keep going. Map will be, even the map, Google Maps sometimes is side of Nigeria. It's side of Lagos.
I'm happy especially because I lost a friend. A younger friend of mine. Yeah, she used to do my nails. She lost her life. She was pregnant and she had to go to the hospital. But the gates were locked. And there was no one to be found with the keys. And that's how she lost her life and the baby inside of her.
Wow.
So for me, I'm like, that's why I was, I was just having that mischievous look on my face when I was reading that, because it has been a long time coming.
And that's the thing I don't know if I would say it's an issue with Lagos State. This is something that Fashola tried to do. And not even tried to do that. Fashola did. Gates went down. They came back up. It came up in Ambode's tenure. Even the first tenure of Sanwo-Olu, the issue of gates came up. They took some gates down around Surulere and Lekki, I remember. Now we're back here again. One, we just do not listen. We are badly behaved. But two, these things are also considered a security conversation. If the state is not adequately providing security, and some of these streets, they link into each other, so it makes it easy for armed robbers and people to enter and to leave.
Which is so
what is the compromise?
Somebody be there with the keys.
I think gates that are unnecessary.
Yes,
like
there are
gates
some
to
that are
roads,
unnecessary.
no estate, no house. The road is gated.
And they are supposed to, it's obligatory that they should have a security there, and gates should be open between 5 and 10. I think this is not a new law.
There's a gate that closes at 9 p.m.
Yes.
In Surulere.
It's somewhere around Oniru.
9 p.m.
If you know the amount of stress you would use to... I drove everywhere past that Oniru to try and go through that gate. By 9, it was already locked. So I had to go back into... And these gates obstruct traffic.
Yes, they
do. If
do.
you've seen how much traffic there is now, I don't know, there's always an upsurge of traffic in December. And it's been so terrible for people that live in the Ajah area coming into Lekki. It's very stressful.
I understand security, but it can also be an obstruction of security if, say, for the work we do, for example, we have to stay out, and then someone is pursuing you, and you're running to your house, and so that's why there has to be somebody there.
So Catherine talked about losing a friend, and there have been situations where maybe a fire outbreak. I think I remember when the state was trying to get through. They couldn't. The gate was locked. There was nobody with the key. So what they're saying is the gates that are approved and legal must all be manned. You cannot leave them unmanned. Somebody cannot have key and walk away. If that gate is coming down, somebody must be sitting beside that gate. I see, they're like the Lekki one. And then I think one of the other reasons is people use it as an opportunity to sort of create a mini estate on their own. So they'll now be saying we're a residents association and I want to be collecting dues and then they'll be saying, in this place. It's a big conversation and again, just a consistent...
Except it's a proper road that takes you to the main road is gated.
Everybody just forming, this is Lekki area.
Let's see what happens. So there is a 7-day ultimatum, according to the statement from the Lagos Commissioner of Transport. He said that all gates and barriers installed without prior authorization from the Lagos State government are illegal and will be removed. Any unauthorized gate or barrier must be dismantled within 7 days of this announcement, and failure to comply will result in enforcement actions. And then the ones that do have prior approval, they must have compliance, again, as we talked about, be open from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, ensure interconnectivity and free flow of traffic. They'll even be telling you that you don't have a pass to pass this route. It's all right. So be watching. One thing we hope for is consistency with the Lagos State government on this, and let's see how they action, because let me tell you now, landlords and residents associations have already been trying to get to the governor on this. Yep.
I love it. Okay, so we've got to go. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Thank you so much for making it a date with us, giving us your 1 hour of your time. Time is precious. We value it. See you tomorrow.
So